scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side
Whoa, so you're
are
telling
you
me it was
on?
37
Which side
37
are
counts
you
of tax fraud and you're still wanted in 17 states by the FBI?
Yeah, actually. It's true. It's time to come clean, and it is what it is. I made a mistake, and I apologize. Not just to you, not just to 36 states, 36 counts of tax fraud and X amount of states, but to the American people.
Yeah, no, I feel that it's the least you could do.
It's true. No, it's true. I owe it to my community, to my people, to yeah.
All right. Yeah, I always was wondering why you would always say that you were like seeking refuge in Utah when you're like talking about when you moved here.
Yeah, it's because I'm a wanted criminal, actually.
What state do you think you're wanted in the most?
Oh gosh, Michigan.
Yo, this is Remarks. What is up?
What up, you guys? I'm Phoebe.
I'm Taylor. And we're gonna be talking about some things today.
We're gonna be talking about stuff.
But before we do that, I don't know if the listeners know this, but I am an avid user of the internet. And from time to time, I like to share some of the weird shit that I find out on the internet.
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite thing that you do, actually.
This week, I found out that the most expensive and rarest My Littlest Pet Shop was actually a 2006 Comic-Con dog Littlest Pet Shop that was a limited time, and that's why it's so rare and so expensive. And these motherfuckers go for $500 to $1,000 for a little toy.
That's irrelevant at this point.
It's so irrelevant. But all of that to say, if any of our listeners have the 2006 Comic-Con dog Littlest Pet Shop,
we want
and
it.
Want to, yeah, I want it.
Yeah.
Do I have $500 to give you? No.
No.
I run a podcast. I'm not made of money.
We make actually basically $0 from doing this.
Exactly. But
that being said, if you want to gift it to us, yes.
You will get, I'd be comfortable saying you could get a shout out on the next 50 podcasts.
Oh, for sure. We're willing to offer you, trade offer, 50 podcast shout outs for rarest, littlest pet shop ever made.
Exactly.
Valued at $1,200.
Exactly. And I feel like 50 shout outs on our podcast is about $1,200.
That's worth more than gold, baby.
Oh, you know it. Anyway, let's get started. I guess.
Let's get into our podcast.
We're talking about the government.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about how the government has fucked over Native American people.
Yeah, for pretty much. Well, not even pretty much. Exactly since the beginning of settling this country.
Yeah,
settling. I say, meaning the English people coming across.
True. I mean, realistically, even older than that.
That's
because,
true.
like, Spain fucked them up a lot.
That is also true.
Yeah.
Just never.
For a long time.
Never been good.
Yeah, like, before America existed, Americans were fucking over
True.
Native American people.
True.
I did want to put a caveat. When I'm doing some quotes and things, I will be reading the quote verbatim and probably using the word Indian.
Mm-hmm.
But that is just the quote that I'm using. I know that, like, some tribes and things will go by, like, American Indians and things like that. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but just know that if I say that, it's because it's in a quote.
Yep.
Other than that, I'll usually be saying indigenous or native people.
Mm-hmm. Same with my thing. There's some, like, organizations that use the term Indian, and that's what I'll be using it as. But, yeah, interchangeably, like, Native American, if that article I was reading used that term, or indigenous.
Exactly.
So there you go.
Exactly.
That's that.
All right. So, coming in here. So, as you probably know, while the... What? I don't know how I wrote that, but it's very strange. So, as you probably know... since white people landed in North America, we have consistently or constantly been fucking over native peoples.
Yeah.
As far back as Christopher Columbus Good old Chris landed in 1492, brought about 500 natives back to Spain with him as slaves, and about 200 died before reaching their destination.
Jesus.
So pretty classic Anglo-Saxon bullshit.
Yeah.
Spaniards coming up from Mexico from Mexico on expeditions would often pillage and enslave native peoples whilst taking what they needed and destroying the rest. So not only did they just take anything they wanted from the natives people, but they would actively destroy things that they didn't need just to again fuck people over.
Just to be a piece of shit.
Just because they were garbage.
Yeah.
The Virginia colony and the Carolinas did trade with natives, which is kind of where the first Thanksgiving story comes from.
Sure.
But also they kind of threw a wrench into the native trade, causing many tribes to enslave and pillage other tribes to then be able to produce more things to trade with the white settlers, which again kind of threw off the whole balance, because now there was tribes that were becoming dependent upon the trading with the white settlers.
Yeah, which is another classic white colonizer move.
Good old imperialism.
Yeah.
This is also not to mention the spread of disease from colonizers to natives, and though there was some vice versa, we definitely spread a lot of disease to the natives.
Yeah.
So yeah, all around pretty much what you'd expect from white people at this point. So yeah, white people not the coolest when it came to the native population from the beginning. But we are going to be talking a little bit more about America specifically, being the United States of America. 1786, we established the first Native American reservation, although we did not treat every tribe, we did treat every tribe as an independent nation at that time. So it was more, there was a little bit more diplomacy, it wasn't, the Native Americans or the people that, because Native Americans now are all, citizens.
Yeah.
But back then they weren't. They were, considered their own distinct nations.
Got it.
Attitudes began to change though in 1821 when James Monroe stated that treating them as their own nations flattered their pride, slowed their progress, and paved their destruction.
Oh my God.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Treating them as autonomous nations of people paved their destruction.
Who were already here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it just, again, kind of goes back to this idea that if they don't do things exactly the way we do them, then they're not living right or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Which again is objectively untrue.
Yeah.
Natives were literally fine and thriving before we even thought about coming over here. And Monroe's administration removed the natives completely from the states north of the Ohio River, so they relocated all of them there. I think a common through line you'll see with presidents is this weird diplomacy where they'll say that they care about Native Americans and their rights as people, but then they will all just pass policies and do things that just prove they don't give a single fuck about them.
Yeah.
It's never fails. Historical piece of shit Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
Good old Andrew. Also, Andrew Jackson looks like a fucking dork, dude.
Oh, he's so ugly.
He's got a big ass fucking thumb head. His head looks like a fucking thumb, dude.
It's true.
If you look at your pull out a $20 bill and tell me it doesn't look like a thumb.
He's just tell me that man's not a thumb.
Exactly.
He's just shitty in every single aspect of him existing at all.
Yeah, I usually try not to make fun of people's appearance because it's kind of a low blow.
Andrew Jackson deserves it though.
He deserves it, and he's super dead. So I'm not his feelings aren't gonna be hurt. I'm just thinking about the thumb people from Spy Kids.
Thumbs.
The thumbs. Yeah.
What
was the fucking dude? He was evil in the first one, and then he was good in the second one.
George Lopez?
No. Yeah, it was. He was the guy that ran the Thumb Island, the wizardy guy.
Antonio Banderas?
Who is
now
that?
I'm just naming people that were in
Just
Spy
naming
Kids.
people. No, I don't know what his name was, but I think that
I
was
don't
the
remember.
dad, right? Wasn't Antonio?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And George Lopez was.
He was like a floating head on like.
I do believe you're thinking of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Unfortunately.
Was he also in Shark Boy and Lava Girl?
Yeah,
or
that's
am I
when
thinking?
he was in the floating head. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not though.
It's almost the same movie, to be
It's
fair.
they're pretty similar. Yeah, I get you.
Wacky antics
Yeah.
ensuing with young kids. Anyway.
Groundbreaking CGI. Anyway, so Andrew Jackson came into the presidency in 1829, and again said on like the outside that he wanted to respect the rights of Native people, but also passed the Removal Act of 1830, which allowed the government to exchange, heavy air quotes, land from the Louisiana Purchase for the land that was held by the natives. So they were like, we'll give you this land that we just bought from France if you give us your land. And they called the land in the Louisiana Purchase the Indian Colonization Zone, which is kind of just like, it just says what just says what it is.
It's
like
pretty cut and dry.
it's just, like, I don't know, it's wild. But Jackson spent many years before that as an army general who would lead campaigns in Georgia, Alabama, Florida, stealing land from tribes and giving it to white farmers and Europeans. And Americans still have that kind of belief that, like, because they're Christian, and it was big back then, and it's still prevalent today, that like because they're like Christian, that it's like their right to be able to take whatever they want, you know. And especially that was like a huge driver behind like the Manifest Destiny and moving out west was like we have the right to this land, like God wants us to have this land and to cultivate this land or whatever, which again is still kind of how white American Christians feel today.
It's true.
At least the majority of them. In 1831, the Choctaw became the first nation to be expelled from their land altogether. They made the journey to the Indian Territory without food, supplies, or other help from the government. A Choctaw leader told an Alabama newspaper it was a trail of tears and death, which is where the term the Trail of Tears comes from. So pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, being pushed off of your land and just being like, all right, you got to walk over to this land now, and then just didn't give them any single thing to sustain themselves.
Right.
I don't know. Kind of fucked.
Very fucked.
Not even kind of fucked. Like, pretty fucked. Yeah.
Pretty much the worst.
Kind of one of the worst things you could ever do.
Yeah. Genuinely.
The Cherokee people were slightly divided on the issue, many wanting to stay and fight for their land, while others thought it would be more realistic to relocate and in exchange for money and resources. So, you know, I guess the U.S. government was willing to like barter a little bit to like be like, hey, we'll give you some money if you want to like move. In 1835, the U.S. government signed a deal with appointed representatives of the Cherokee Nation to leave the land in exchange for $5 million. But many Cherokees felt betrayed since none of the negotiators represented the tribal government or like any of the people. The treaty was agreed upon by a small minority of like a Cherokee political faction, or just like a Cherokee group, like political group. And though there was a petition by the other groups in the Cherokee Nation to stop the relocation, the U.S. government went ahead with the treaty anyway.
Yeah.
So they kind of like, I don't know. It's a little bit tricky finding like the specifics, but there was a small portion that like struck up a deal with the U.S. government and definitely did not represent the entirety, which again is kind of a big issue that we even see today with like minority groups.
For sure.
Just like one specific voice doesn't represent like the entirety of a group.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, and it's like, you know, that like specifically the American government too will focus in on whatever voice it is that's like cooperative with them or serving like the American government more. So it's like there was this group of Cherokees that was like, okay, like we'll try and make a deal with you, and the American government was like, cool, you speak for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And again, they had specific like political ideals, and they obviously exchanged the land for $5 million, which I don't know how that was distributed or if that was distributed at all, like what the situation was. But yeah, I feel like we see that a lot too with like, because there'll be like some speaker that comes out who's black and then like talks about, is against like Black Lives Matter, and I feel like a bunch of like Facebook moms are like, look at this, look at this, and it's like it's just one guy. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's always the thing. But yeah, so approximately 4,000 Cherokees died on the Trail of Tears. The Mexican-American War in 1848 gave the U.S. new territories, and a government report in 1852 stated many Californians believed destiny had awarded California to the Americans, the white Americans, I should say, to develop, and if the Indians interfered with their progress, they should be pushed aside, was the specific report that was written. So, good things going on.
Once again, just God and religion coming in as like, we're allowed to do this because God said so.
I mean, yeah, if you think you're justified, like, I don't know, like, look at, like, the Crusades and stuff, like, so much bloodshed, but, like, people thought they were justified, and, like...
And how do you, like, that's such a difficult thing to argue with somebody about.
Yeah. Being, like, maybe God doesn't want you to kill people and take all of their stuff.
Yeah.
Wild concept.
Crazy. Crazy thing.
Crazy. I've been making fun of how Phoebe says words with her very mild Valley Girl accent, and it's very funny. And I shouldn't making fun because it truly gives me life.
No, yeah. It's in good, like, it's a nice friendly, like...
It's a nice friendly little mocking, if you will.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as like a reimagining is what I do, like, a reinterpretation of sorts. Yeah. So there was definitely still high tensions during the Civil War. Some of the tribes joined up with the Union Army, some joined up with the Confederate Army. The Navajos, just in kind of like their location, joined up with the Confederacy, and they were captured by the Union and forced to walk 300 miles to New Mexico and serve as prisoners. So again, lots of walking, lots of dying. Yeah. Terrible stuff. Which again is like kind of funny that like the Union was fighting to like free slaves, but
yeah, exactly.
And granted, it was like prisoners of war, I guess, but like so it's like not quite the same, but still kind of like.
But it just like goes to show like you can't just look at that, the Civil War specifically, like black and white, and be like North good, South bad. Like
it's true. Well, yeah, no, and I mean everybody was still extremely racist, whether you were the North or the South.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like, there's no one was like good, quote unquote, or like woke, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, I know like there's a big discussion about like judging people by like the time period that they lived in, but still not good. Yeah. None of them were good. No one throughout all of history has ever been good.
Ever.
Humanity is a smudge on. We're truly a plague to the earth. Sorry, got a little nihilistic on the pod.
Rein it in, Taylor.
Sorry. We're all compost and training. Throughout the 19th century, there was a lot of debate among the white people in the U.S. of the status of Native American citizenship. Some were for it and some were against it, but the main takeaway is that in like all of the discussions, Native voices were almost never included. So they didn't really ask Native people what they thought about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Which, again, kind of is like what you would expect. Like a bunch of like white dudes arguing over like if someone should have citizenship and not asking the people if they want it, Like it's, very, I don't know. Reminds me of Congress now.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's all it is like a bunch of people who this specific issue doesn't affect arguing over this specific issue and never consulting the people that the specific issue affects.
Exactly. It's like, I don't know, I feel like
it's what our country's founded on.
The American way is founded on black coffee and that a bunch of white guys talking about things and Marlboro cigarettes.
True.
But But yeah, no, it reminds me of like the whole like abortion issue,
Yeah,
like a bunch of
exactly.
old white guys talking about if women should have autonomy over their bodies.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
It's truly insane.
It's unhinged. It's ludicrous.
Luda.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all, yeah. You know what does think that women should have autonomy over their bodies?
At least probably the service that we advertise probably thinks that. Hopefully.
I would think so. I don't know. Spotify's a pretty hip progressive company. I would think, yeah.
They have slides in their offices and shit.
They got ping pong in their office.
Yeah.
You get as much free I don't know, bang energy as you want. Like just seems like something they'd have in like a
100%.
Anyway,
ads. Ooh.
Tonight, here I am. Oh yeah, we're recording again.
What was the like pop punk cover of Make My Way Downtown?
Yeah, yeah. Vanessa Carlson's 1,000 Miles.
Funny.
I forget his name. Honestly, he deserves a podcast shout out. But
he's so funny.
he like he'll make all these like wild covers, but in that cover specifically, just the way that it's like tonight. It's just so funny. I don't know.
It's too good. It's too good.
Let's see. What's his fucking YouTube?
We're finding him to shout
Alex Melton.
Alex Melton, you're a funny motherfucker.
Yeah. Shout out Alex Melton.
Yeah.
Keep doing funny things.
Yeah. If you're listening, what up?
What's good? That'd be cool if you were listening.
Yeah.
Want to come on the pod for something?
For anything you want at all.
You got opinions? We do too.
Shout them out.
Shout them out here. All right. So, reorganize my notes here.
Get yourself situated.
The June 25th, 1876, took place the Battle of Little Bighorn. We had federal troops led by Colonel George Armstrong Custer, also known as Custer's Last Stand, is another name for this battle, up against the Lakota Sioux, I believe it's Sioux tribe, and Cheyenne Native tribes. The U.S. found gold on some of the Native American land in South Dakota and basically said psych on the treaty agreements that they had already like made. So they were like, you get this land, and then there was gold, and they were like
we've made a mistake.
about that land.
About that treaty.
About that little land dizzles. Yeah, we're going to need that back. So by late spring of 1876, more than 10,000 natives had gathered in a camp along the Little Bighorn River to oppose the U.S. War Department, which was also, again, trying to move them again.
Right.
June 25th, Custer rode into Little Bighorn with about 600 men who were ambushed by a native leader named Crazy Horse. That was his name. And his men that he was leading. Custer and his battalion were destroyed and killed. Yeah, obviously. So they were very much outnumbered. Mm-hmm. And as triumphant as a story as that is, like they stood their ground and protected their land, it definitely did not have a happy ending. The backlash from white Americans was one of racism, and the U.S. government increased its push to move natives to reservations and subdue tribes. Within 5 years, nearly all the Sioux and Cheyenne tribes were relocated. Yeah. There's a article that was in a newspaper about it, which I thought was interesting. It's kind of hard to read, so I'll do my best. But so yeah, it says massacre. At Little Bighorn wipes out 276 United States cavalrymen. Chief Sitting Bull leads Indians in revolt as Sioux go on warpath. So again, kind of the language that they're using. Right. They were just there defending their land.
Yeah, which it's like you literally are violating a treaty that you set, pushing them off the land that you've already pushed them into a small amount of land because you were like, oh, fuck, there was gold and now we want it back. Like, but of course it's like they were They were on a ravaging warpath.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, even in parts of it here, it's like, so like, yeah, later in the article, it's like, reports state that dead men were mutilated by the Indians after the battle. Chief Rain in, sorry, again, it's kind of hard to read. Chief Rain in the Face is said to have cut out the heart of Captain Tom Custer and eaten it. So again, just like very, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
They just wrote that.
I mean, yeah, that's classic, like what they would do, to how they would portray like the indigenous people was as this, like, they were cutting people's organs out.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, definitely a bunch of racism going on. Conflicts between the U.S. and natives continued because the government is evil and greedy. One such conflict took place on December 29th, 1890, and it wasn't so much a conflict as the U.S. just being racist pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And I am referring to the Wounded Knee Massacre.
Yeah.
Again, some people will call it the Battle of Wounded Knee. Again, I feel like the Wounded Knee Massacre is a better description because it was not a fight, really.
Yeah.
So basically, it's kind of a wild story. So basically, what happened is there was a native named Wavoka, who believed that the ghosts of their ancestors, along with a Messiah like Jesus, so like Jesus as the Messiah was born into like a Native American body, was to come along and save the native people from the white men. The U.S. government and white people had been systematically destroying the bison population and in turn the Native Americans' way of life, and wiped out a bunch of the buffaloes. The natives believed that by performing the ghost dance, they would bring about the end of the white man's tyranny, and the ghosts of their ancestors would lead them to like new pastures of bison. The U.S. government and white settlers believed the ghost dance, which was what they would perform to conjure up these spirits, could mean an incoming attack, so that they highly discouraged it.
Oh my God.
On December 15th, 1890, U.S. officials decided to take some chiefs into custody to quell the ghost dance craze, which led to the death of one of the leaders named Sitting Bull. After his death, a group of about 200 fled to the Cheyenne Reservation. So Sitting Bull had a camp. Sitting Bull was murdered. So this group of about 200 started heading to this Cheyenne Reservation. Chief Spotted Elk of that Cheyenne Reservation and some of his men left to meet them and get them to safety. There was about 230 men and about 120 women altogether on December 29th when the U.S. military ordered the people to surrender their weapons in this camp. I think they were on like a military training ground of some kind, like moving through. So the U.S. military orders the people to surrender their weapons, which most of them do. Most of them just start giving up their weapons. The story is a little debated, but it is highly believed that a native man named Black Coyote, who spoke no English and was deaf, didn't understand the orders to give up his weapon. While this was happening at the same time, a medic named Yellowbird was performing a ghost dance, and some of the younger men in the tribe, after hearing Black Coyote's gun go off, pulled out their guns, and it kind of turned into this thing where like this big miscommunication or confusion, because Black Coyote probably would have surrendered his gun, but again was deaf and didn't speak any English, so his gun went off in like the struggle as they were trying to get it from him. The U.S. military then murdered men, women, and children and hunted down the ones who tried to escape with Chief Spotted Elk, all over a misunderstanding because of a deaf man who didn't understand the orders. So I believe it was pretty much all of them, the 230 men and the 120 women and children, all were killed. It's awful.
Which it's like, that they were just waiting for a moment like that to be able to just like massacre everybody.
Yeah, it's I definitely don't think that kind of stuff happens if you don't already have like prejudice and like I don't know a distaste for a certain group of people, because again it was women and children, and they'd already taken a good portion of the weapons from these people. Like there wasn't a need for this.
Yeah. Well, and especially to kill the people that were running away.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Like they were trying to evacuate, but they were hunted down.
There's no excuse there.
Yeah. The massacre site became a place of remembrance, and decades later, Wounded Knee would be a rallying cry for Native American rights. I do recall reading, I actually didn't write this part down, but I do recall reading that the soldiers in this encounter were given like medals of honor or something.
What the fuck?
And then there was a big move to like revoke their medals of honor after that, because yeah, people were like, there's not anything honorable about what happened. Like
not even in the slightest.
Like not even like people who I'm sure weren't like super pro Native American rights or anything were like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Like you massacred a bunch of people. You didn't do anything brave or heroic. But yeah, so and then that in 1924, President Calvin Coolidge granted Native peoples full citizenship, and the, again, quote unquote, Indian Wars were for the most part over, at least in the way that they existed back then.
Right.
And that brings us to where Phoebe's going to pick it up, because Phoebe's doing a little bit more of that modern hist. Modern
histizzles.
But yeah, so I mean, if you ever think that the U.S. government is bad now, they're just as bad.
Yeah.
Honestly, they've always been bad.
Always been bad. Never been good.
Name one good thing the U.S. government's done.
Can't think.
Couldn't do it.
Can't think of a one. Can't think of a single thing that they've done that was good that wasn't like them rectifying something bad earlier. Like, you could argue like, oh, legalizing of same-sex marriage. Well, they made it illegal, so that it canceled out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I again, it's like name. I'm trying to think of like a single thing that has been done that's not like done to rectify something, or like with alternative motives,
right, exactly.
or like to actually help a single actual person. Like,
yeah,
I can
coming up blank.
Yeah, maybe the New Deal.
Maybe
that's all I can think. But even then, I don't know enough about it to like be able to comfortably say.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. America. Shall we jump into it?
Yes. Honestly, I would be upset if you didn't.
That was me
swan diving into
that. My research.
What's the Scooby-Doo in cyberspace when they go into the computer? No?
I don't know.
That was a classic. And then they go through all the levels of this video game, and then at the very end they meet their like old selves.
I believe, like, I feel like I vaguely remember that. I honestly didn't really watch that much Scooby-Doo growing up.
That's unfortunate, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying girls don't watch Scooby-Doo, but I watched, like,
what did you watch as a lass?
Dragon Tales.
Dragon Tales was lit.
Loved Dragon Tales. Obviously SpongeBob.
Obviously.
I did like Roly Poly Oly.
That one was lit too.
That was pretty good.
When you were like, let's see. Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent,
whatever.
y'all,
It's what we do.
When you were like a tween, what did you think? What did you watch?
When I was a tween, I feel like I just watched like just like Disney stuff.
Yeah, lots of Disney.
Yeah, like there was this one show called The Weekenders. Did you ever watch that show?
I don't think I did.
Oh my god, it was so fucking good. It was like it would like go through this group of friends like their whole weekend, and then like all the stuff they would do, and it was like really funny, and yeah, that was a good one.
Hannah
Honestly,
Montana.
Yeah, Hannah Montana. I feel like I was like, I guess I was a tween when Hannah Montana was happening. Hannah Montana. That's a Raven.
Oh, That's So Raven.
Absolutely loved that show.
And then Cory in the House following That's So Raven.
Yeah, I think by the time Cory in the House was on, I was kind of like, I watch MTV now. Like I thought it was like way too cool. I was like watching Degrassi.
And now we all just watch cartoons again.
It's true, yeah, because I'm like, everything sucks.
The
I
world
want to
is
watch
awful, yeah.
Phineas and Ferb, which was also a favorite.
Yeah.
That show's so goddamn funny.
It's
Honestly,
so
arguably,
funny.
like, that and Emperor's New Groove is like some of the funniest media I've ever consumed.
Hilarious.
Like, height of comedy, truly.
Yeah, well, because the writers from SpongeBob went to Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But before SpongeBob, they worked on Rocko's Modern Life, which is also a classic. So, yeah.
Yeah, Rugrats.
Rugrats,
Hey
classic.
Arnold.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I feel like there's just because everything is so bad all the time, and like the realities of life
As
are
we are
always
telling
like
you currently.
crushing us. Like,
Yeah.
there's something nice to watch like a show where like the stakes are just like very low and wholesome, you know?
Exactly.
And like not every like, because like I don't know, like in a lot of like adult TV shows, the drama always hinges on like very high stakes. Somebody dies, or like somebody goes through, there's an affair, there's like traumatic events or whatever. But like to have like a story that's told well and it just like is just like a wholesome story is like something you don't see a lot, you know?
Exactly. No, you and I think I've had like a really long conversation about just like
Probably.
why, most likely, why just like children's cartoons are actually very like comforting to watch, and it's like important and rare.
Yeah, you don't really see a lot of like adult media that is like that. Like you see kids media that like can be enjoyed by adults.
Yes.
But you don't really see a lot of like adult media that is like that or can be enjoyed by kids because it's like that. I don't know.
Right. That's like just wholesome content. Like,
exactly.
Doesn't have some scary thing or some like commentary on whatever. Like it's just like a nice thing.
Exactly. It's just like a good story of like, you know, good triumphing over evil or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
some more bummer stuff for you guys. So Taylor just gave us a little bit of a history around reservations, told us about the Wounded Knee Massacre. As you said, reservations were developed in the 1800s. 1800s? 1700s. 1800s, because 17 whatever is the 1800s. Which I always hate that's how it is.
Yeah,
it's very
that's
confusing.
Silly. But yeah.
But that's for another day. Right, developed in the 1800s to divide up land that settlers wanted to colonize, and so this created borders between tribes, split up communities, forced the original population of America onto small and usually barren sections of land, which was a huge deal because the native people lived off the land and like knew how things grew out of the land.
Well, and they gave most of their land to white people. Yeah. Because, again, racist.
Yeah. So borders had been created, protected by treaties that were to be honored by the U.S. government in order to preserve this. Sorry, something crazy happened. Okay. They were to be honored by the U.S. government in order to preserve this for the native people. However, like you were saying, when gold and oil were found, these treaties began to be violated, and the government pushed back on the land borders, wanting more and more for themselves. Reservation life has always been difficult, and the people suffer due to several different factors: poor health care, food deserts, high food prices, and pipelines threaten the lives of the native people.
Wait. So I'm new at this history thing. So the U.S. government putting a profit motive over the well-being of individuals. Does that happen often?
Constantly. Actually, I hate to break it to you, Taylor.
Yeah, sorry. I've only read history up to like 1770. So like I don't really know like this whole America, like how the America thing's working out.
I have very bad news for you. Yeah, pretty much everything is turning human survival into profit.
Oof. Well, I don't like this at all.
I
wish there was some sexy bearded man that would come along and write a manifesto about why that's bad.
Me too. God, maybe his name is Carl or something.
But with a K.
Yeah. Carl. Just dreaming.
Yeah, just daydream commie things. Anyway.
So the picture of life on a reservation can be bleak, and at Pine Ridge Reservation, many of the homes lack plumbing, running water, or electricity, which is true for pretty much every reservation, but I specifically was reading about this Pine Ridge Reservation. So many families on Pine Ridge have to purchase bottled water in order to have clean water to drink. And that's if residents on the reservation are able to get a home at all. There's a
Ugh.
major housing crisis on reservations due to high poverty rates. People are unable to build their own homes on the reservations. Many homes that lie in small communities, sometimes miles away from schools and the center, like town center where, the resources are packed with multiple generations of the same family, sometimes up to 12 people living in the same 2 to 3 bedroom home.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's just frustrating because it's like America, the richest nation in the world.
Exactly.
But for like, I don't know, 3 guys, like,
yeah,
right. It's like there's people living in extreme poverty, and especially on these Native American reservations. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I mean, it's good. When that home is also devoid of electricity or plumbing, the living conditions are extremely difficult. For some families, living in the same home as multiple generations of their family can be beneficial. Childcare help coming from multiple family members, lessons, and learning about Native culture from their older relatives, especially with like the push for Native culture to be destroyed and these younger generations not having as much access to that, having daily conversations with like your older relative who grew up in the culture is beneficial. Multiple people looking out for each other, that whole it takes a village kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's like a lot of like parallels to actual people from Indians. Like they have a lot of like things like that too with multi-generational households.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and however, for other families, this can, of course, be suffocating. Living in close quarters can cause tension, house is messy, etc. And I think that we can all agree that whether multi-generational living is something that certain families on the reservations would like to do, it would be much easier and enjoyable with more space and a home that comes with plumbing and electricity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For other folks living on the reservation who don't wish to live in an overcrowded home or are unable to for multiple reasons, homelessness becomes the next option. There are only around 220 homes on the Crow Creek Reservation, and competition for these homes is fierce. And so this leaves around 300 to 400 people homeless. Yeah, it's really, really bad. Homelessness is devastating anywhere, but on reservations where homes and resource areas are miles apart, life can be even more difficult for a homeless native. For instance, and I'm not comparing homelessness, it's bad no matter what, but I think like as a homeless person living in the city, you're closer to a free clinic, you're closer to a place that might be throwing away food to eat, whatever, versus like if you're in this more desolate area where resources and like town centers are very, very spread apart, it takes a really long time to get to those places where you have the chance of even fucking eating food out of a garbage, for God's sake. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I feel like you see a lot of homeless populations in like metropolitan areas
right.
because there's more resources. There's soup kitchens, there's free clinics, there's people around.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, in a rural area, that would be rough.
Yeah. Food on reservations is scarce and expensive, and healthcare is extremely low quality due to purposeful underfunding. And shelter outside of a home can be difficult to come by, like even just having materials to like prop up and create a shelter is difficult to come by. The number of houses is already low, and it can drop even lower due to meth contamination. Meth has ravaged reservations, and the rate of meth use among Native Americans is higher than any other ethnicity in the country. Of course, this was something that was introduced into these areas by the rest of the fucking country. And
I think we've talked about before, like because with drug addictions and crime and just anything, like you have to look at like what causes those things.
Exactly.
And again, if you're living in extreme poverty,
right.
like, a lot of times drugs are an escape. And
exactly.
It's unfortunate that that's the case, but like that's why a lot of people turn to it.
Exactly. When meth is used or made in homes, the smoke can contaminate any porous surface in the home, and this can make people sick and even kill them. So these houses have to be vacated, and they remain completely empty. And it's difficult to get materials needed to build new homes on the reservations. So this, of course, just adds to an already difficult housing situation. So yeah, like we were just kind of talking about, substance abuse is an issue on reservations. When the reality around you can seem so bleak, an easy escape is a numbing substance. So, you know, when the American government is actively trying to finish the genocide that was started decades ago, and you're seeing your culture trying to be destroyed by that same government, depression is almost inevitable. Depression and suicide rates are extremely high on reservations, which, of course, so many factors, poverty, starvation, health concerns, generational trauma, gang violence, all of that contributes to mental illness amongst residents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was like, we're at a real dark point. I don't know how to.
We're going to take a break.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta.
Sometimes you can't.
Oh goodness. Yeah, I don't want to completely deter any other sponsors from ever wanting to sponsor us.
True.
So. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe the incitements to violence will do that.
Yeah, that too. Just the general content.
Yeah.
Anyway, ads.
Anyway, SpongeBob.
SpongeBob. What is she's like? Oh, so now the yellow box is giving us directions.
That part's so good. That part's so good. Me and Sam have been watching some SpongeBob, and you know the episode where he's trying to get into the salty spittoon, and he makes the deal with Patrick to like let him beat Patrick up. He's like, I'm gonna beat up the next guy I see, and then the guy at the door is like, what about that guy? And it's like some big buff guy, and he's like, and then he's like, no. We've been dying over that part. It's so funny.
It's so funny. This, like, Taylor and I were talking about how like they made like certain cartoons had like scare factors, like that Courage the Cowardly Dog was like scary as fuck sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel like the scariest episode of like classic SpongeBob, the only good SpongeBob, the only real SpongeBob, was the episode where they like are traveling in time, and then Squidward goes like, I think he goes like too far into the future or something, and it's
he breaks the machine.
He breaks it, and he's like, alone. Like that definitely gave me a little bit of an existential crisis as a child.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was like jump scare.
No.
Like it was like genuinely like existential.
Like I was like 9. I was like, oh my God.
Let me paint you a picture, listeners, because I told Phoebe this on the break. So I'm 9 years old. I'm watching Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island on VHS. I fall asleep watching the movie because I'm 9. I can't fucking stay awake for an entire movie. I am a little sleepy boy. And I wake up at like... I feel like it was 2 a.m., but realistically it was probably like 11. And I probably fell asleep at like 9. I wake up in a cold sweat, and I glance up at my television, and after Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island would finish, there was an episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog, and it was the Return the Slab episode. Fucking guy was like, Return the Slab.
Terrifying.
I look up, and I see that motherfucker on the screen in a half-dazed cold sweat, and I lose my mind. I run out of the room. I'm like, Mom, what the fuck is going on? 9-year-old me is like, Mom, what the fuck is happening?
Out of your mouth, and you were like, what the fuck?
Took my sippy cup down and was like, Mom, what the fuck is happening? And was scarred from that day forward.
And now that's Taylor's sleep paralysis demon.
Absolutely, it is. When I go to hell, he's gonna be waiting for me at the gate.
100%.
For sure. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
When I go to hell for being an abomination in the eyes of the Lord because I like men.
Yeah.
That's who I'm gonna see.
Yeah. Did you ever picture this? You're at a friend's house for a sleepover. You were watching shows on I think Nickelodeon. Late at night, you and your friend fall asleep. You don't know how to turn off the TV, so you both just fall asleep. 2 a.m. you wake up, blasting in your ears, low rider. George Lopez is on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know how your friend's fucking TV works because everybody had different ass TVs back then, and you just have to sit there while like, and it's for whatever reason you could have put the TV. Oh, moonshine.
Moonshine's getting wild.
She got crazy. You could have put the TV on like 2 volume, doesn't matter. George Lopez comes on and it's at 47, blasting. The speakers break. And your friend's still asleep.
Yeah, and how did your friend always stay asleep?
Always.
Because it was blowing the speakers out. George Lopez's face.
A fucking car alarm was going off 3 neighborhoods away.
Exactly. Oh my god, yeah, no, like everybody in the fucking neighborhood heard that shit,
Yes.
except your friend
Except my
who would
friend.
stay fucking asleep. Yeah, that shit also, like, I
Universal
love.
experience.
Yeah, it's like any millennial you talk to is like, oh, that fucking happened to me like 30 times.
Yes,
Like,
multiple
they
times.
always know.
Multiple times. Or we got to get going on the episode, or where like somebody would put like a movie on and you would fall asleep and then you would wake up and it would just be the DVD menu just like repeating and you
Yeah.
didn't know how to fucking turn off their TV, so it's just like repeated whatever the DVD menu
You're like,
is.
I've listened to this Camp Rock intro 30 times, bro. I don't know.
my
I didn't
God.
watch Camp Rock at sleepovers in Forge. I
On
wish I would have,
Forge.
but
There was one time we
that was
really gotta
kind of
get going on the episode, but
too gay for
yeah.
my friends.
There was one time where we watched, I was older, but we watched Spring Breakers, and it was just that DVD intro over and over, and it's just fucking Dave Franco or whatever, and he's like Spring Break, and just that for like an hour. Anyway, we
It's
gotta
all
get
right.
into it.
We're Tangent Town. It's all right.
That's what we
It's what
do.
y'all tune in for.
It's true. It's true. It's for our personalities.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, back to depressing info. So as I was talking about, meth use, just substance abuse in general on reservations, to numb the pain of reality, as most of us do. It is important to note that a common racist idea is that all Native people are alcoholics, or that Native people are more likely to have alcohol abuse issues. That's like a common caricature
That
back
is a
in the
big
day.
thing, yeah.
This is untrue. The rates of alcoholism are equivalent to white people, and Native people are actually more likely to abstain from alcohol completely than white people. Alcoholism is, of course, still an issue, just like it is amongst the rest of the population living in the U.S.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's like because they do have more impoverished areas like that, and white people just needed to tell themselves something to like feel better about it,
Yeah, it definitely came from like colonizers introducing alcohol to like the Native people, and that kind of like becoming this new thing for Native people, and then like and I think it's like the classic just racist caricature, just like they would of like people in underfunded neighborhoods where they're like, oh, black people are drug dealers, that kind of idea that's been perpetuated. Mental illness, substance abuse, all of that goes untreated on reservations because the healthcare system is so underfunded. The Native population often chooses to save the healthcare resources for life-threatening moments. There's what's the word I'm looking for? Like a phrase used called like life or limb, basically, or I think that's what it was. I fucking am a dumbass and I should have wrote it down. Anyway, basically the idea is that it's like, is your life at stake? No? Well, then continue on because we have almost zero fucking healthcare. The federal U.S. government is required by law to provide healthcare to Indigenous Americans, including Native Alaskans. This federal healthcare all comes through the Indian Health Service. This service funds the IHS clinics on reservations as well as urban Indian health programs outside of reservations that are in 20 states. IHS receives funding each year to cover over 2.2 million people, and that number is higher now. That was based on the article that I was looking at. There is a set yearly budget for IHS that doesn't budge despite any change in healthcare needs. So, in 2013, the IHS budget was set at $2,849 a person, when the average spending on healthcare that year was over $7,000 for people like who are not natives. Donna Keeler, the executive director at South Dakota Urban Indian Health, said that a federal prisoner has a higher healthcare budget than a Native American does.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that is saying a lot, because you'll remember from our two-parter on the prison system, I covered the prison healthcare system, the same one where healthcare providers poured water over an inmate's stab wounds and called it a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's like saying a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, how much did you say each of the Native Americans get for healthcare? Because it was $7,000 for normally.
Yes, for like outside of
Yeah.
that. It was in 2013 $2,849 a person.
Yeah, so they're like $5,000 short of,
Yes.
which like is
Which
a lot.
$7,000 already isn't enough for the
Yeah.
average person.
Because the average
So-
person still gets ass healthcare.
Exactly.
So this is even worse.
Yes, it's
Fuck.
like it's abysmal. It is criminal.
It's criminally
like, truly criminal.
underfunded. Absolutely.
Yeah,
like
it's absolutely awful. And I mean, it's like, again, I mean, this is like Taylor was saying, it's like these wars aren't really happening in the way that you envision a war anymore, but this is what it is now. It's like infrastructural warfare of like you're doing genocide by letting people die due to purposeful underfunding of healthcare.
Exactly. And I mean, it's the same, and it happens with a lot of minority groups. Like, yeah, they don't actively like seek out these people to like enslave or kill or any of these things anymore, but again, they've systematically begun oppressing them, and it's
exactly the structure is set up to continue what began.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the native population is at a high risk for many health conditions, diabetes being a big one, as well as like heart conditions, stuff like that. Much like underfunded cities, reservations are food deserts. As I mentioned earlier, these reservations are very spread out, so people are often driving hours to reach a grocery store. Once you do actually hit a grocery store, the prices are significantly higher than the prices at the grocery stores you and I have access to. And with high poverty and unemployment rates, residents on reservations are already struggling financially.
So fucking frustrating.
Yeah.
It's a fucking monopoly. These grocery stores have a fucking geographical monopoly.
Genuinely.
And it's fucking bullshit, and I'm going to fight these grocery store owners.
Yeah, I would
right
love
now.
to. Right now.
Let's
go.
We're going to go fight these corporate grocery store owners that are hiking the prices, miles away from this fucking, these reservations. Ugh.
End of podcast. We gotta go.
Yeah, sorry. We got to get out of here. Gotta go bust some heads.
God, I would... Yeah. So this is a quote from Navajo Times that outlines this price gap. Quote, in the lower 48 states, American shoppers pay $7.51 more for the, quote, very same basket of food items compared to consumers nationally. The basket contained a loaf of white bread, 1 pound of ground beef, a whole chicken, 1 dozen large eggs, 1 gallon of whole milk, red delicious apples, a pound of tomatoes, and regular and decaffeinated coffee. The chicken, apples, and coffee were priced by the pound. So they're paying about $8 over what like people not living in reservations are paying.
Yeah, and again, like I guess that doesn't seem like that much when you just hear the number, but like $8 for, on average every trip, every time you buy food, which is probably multiple times a month.
Right.
Not to mention all the like, if you want to like get something specific for this thing, like
especially if you are living with, multiple generations of your family in one household. Yeah, all of that. Like, and considering like the poverty rates as well, like every dollar is worth more because you're making less.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Not only are food prices higher, but the food provided to reservation grocery stores is often lower quality and lacking in the nutrients that diabetics need. And on top of that, if you live hours away from access to a grocery store, you're likely going to want to purchase non-perishable items so that you don't have to make that drive so often. And non-perishable items are typically less nutritious, leading to development of diabetes or worsening of symptoms. So it's this cyclical effect. And I mean, again, it's the same thing that we see in these underfunded neighborhoods.
Ugh, yeah. It's so frustrating. And I feel like there's a lot of organizations that are doing great work, but I just feel like, especially in like the Twitter leftist, Instagram leftist sphere, like I don't hear a lot of people talking about this stuff,
true.
Like it just, and I know there's a lot of fucking fish to fry, but
definitely.
But like, yeah, I just like some of the stuff I just had no idea about.
I know.
Until I started doing my research or hearing what you're saying. Like,
it's a big one, and like I don't know, it's something that we should all be more passionate about, because again, these are the rightful owners of this land, or I mean, whatever, if land should even be owned, but like this is the generations of people that were here that like arguably we, the white people, came in murdered and then oppressed the shit out of.
Exactly.
Like, it's like we need to be focusing on this shit,
Exactly.
which I know a lot of people are, but
and I don't know, I can't speak for every native tribe, of course, but I do know like a lot of Native Americans didn't believe in owning land. Like they
Right.
cultivated land and lived off of it, but we were the ones that came in and said like, we own this property
Exactly.
now, right? And like a lot of them don't, and I'm sure there's still tribes that don't think you should own land.
right.
Like,
Yes. I mean, and I can agree with that.
yeah, I definitely see that. There's, I don't feel like you can own a portion of the planet.
Yeah,
Like it's stupid.
No, that's insane. So back to healthcare a little bit. There are clinics run by residents of the reservations that many Native people receive healthcare at. However, the IHS facilities are already short on important medical equipment like MRI machines, emergency rooms, and multiple other devices and medications needed to address the complex health issues of a community. So it's like you break your fucking leg, there's not an emergency room on the reservations. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Well, and God knows that ambulance rides are fucking
Oh,
the most insanely
so
expensive things in the
and
world.
I was reading this article about this man living on a reservation who got stabbed in the neck, and it took up to 2 hours for an ambulance to get there.
Fucking God.
Because again, they're extremely spread apart
Yeah.
where people are living and where town centers are.
Yeah, and I mean, and I've actually heard that in different contexts where like rural areas, like the emergency services, just like sometimes they just can't find where you're at. Like,
Yes.
they just don't know how to get to you. Like,
Right. Or like weather conditions make it 10 times
Exactly,
harder
yeah.
because those roads aren't being plowed or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a whole mess. Right. So the facilities provided by the government, the IHS facilities, already they don't have these things that they need to address these health issues. And so the native run clinics stand to receive even less of this equipment, making it a difficult choice for residents on the reservation. And what's worse is that at these IHS facilities, Indigenous Americans are entitled to receive a certain amount of free care, such as free medications that you can only receive at an IHS facility, making it even more difficult for the tribal-run facilities to function. You know, for instance, talking about diabetes, life-saving fucking insulin that you literally need or you will die, you can only get it at these IHS facilities, which are very far apart and difficult to come by, and are, again, it's a monopoly, again, like,
Ugh, yeah.
yeah.
Evil.
Just
evil. That's just
evil.
what it is.
Just
Yeah.
genuinely evil. Because of all the health crises facing reservation residents, the average life expectancy on some reservations is just 50 years old. Yeah. Indigenous Americans and Native Alaskans have a life expectancy 4.4 years less than other races in the U.S. and are dying at higher rates from preventable conditions. And then I have a quote from an article by nativepartnership.org that outlines the disparities between Native Americans and white people. So this is the quote. Heart disease is the leading cause for American Indians, is what they used in the language that was used in the article. Due to the link between heart disease, diabetes, poverty, and quality of nutrition and healthcare, 36% of natives with heart disease will die before age 65, compared to 15% of Caucasians. Native people are 177% more likely to die from diabetes, 500% more likely to die from tuberculosis, 82% more likely to die from suicide. Cancer rates and disparities related to cancer treatment are higher than for any other Americans, and infant death rates are 60% higher than for Caucasians. So I
just can't believe it.
Yeah, it's like...
Fucking who worries about tuberculosis anymore?
Exactly.
Nobody, but like they have to here. Like it's oh
and
my
that
God.
was according to a study from 2011.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's again, it's just criminal. Like, and it's all preventable shit.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well-
I didn't even get into at all like the coronavirus and how that affected and the access to vaccines there and everything. I had many things to
Yeah.
cover, so I did not even get into that. But that was a whole other fucking ballgame.
It's like when people talk about white privilege, like this is the shit they're talking about. Like
Exactly.
the access to resources that you have as a white person that others do not have. Like
Yes.
I don't know. It's
Purposefully.
It's been purposefully like systematically set up that way. And from what like my research, like these people were pushed off of their land so that we could have the infrastructure
Yes.
that we needed,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't get that. They had to be relocated somewhere else, and
Mm-hmm.
it sucks.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
It's really evil. And so getting into my last little piece here, I'm going to talk about the pipelines and how that has also been a huge effect of not only like more land stealing, but also like health concerns, all of this. So one that I think most of us have heard of is the Dakota Access Pipeline. This pipeline moves 557,000 barrels of oil a day, and as of 2 months ago has been operating for 4 years. DAPL is likely familiar to you, as I was just saying, because of the intense DAPL protests that started back in 2016. So, the Dakota Access Pipeline is 1,172 miles long, and it crosses through North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois. This pipe flows underneath the Missouri and Mississippi River and under Lake Oahe, I believe is how you pronounce it, which is a water source for the Standing Rock Reservation, as well as, I think, the Mississippi River. DAPL also threatens Standing Rock burial grounds and sacred sites. The protests against this pipeline that not only threatened sacred spiritual sites, but also contaminated water, violated treaties, they reached a head in 2016. So there had been legal battles between the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and Energy Transfer, which is the company responsible for building the pipe. These legal battles had been pursued since 2014, and the Standing Rock Sioux tribe attempted to sue due to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers failing to conduct a proper environmental and cultural impact study. So basically, like, before you do anything that involves digging up the ground and doing fucking shit like that, you are supposed to do this environmental and cultural impact study to make sure that you're not going to completely fuck over the environment and kill a bunch of people. And they didn't do that. And so the Standing Rock Sioux tribe wanted to sue them, which was kind of like one of the cruxes for like what started all of these protests.
Yeah.
So through these like legal battles, the tribe illustrated other pipeline spills that had greatly affected water sources. And they were also pursuing legal action on the ground that this pipeline would be violating sacred grounds and treaties. So this kind of gets us more into the actual protests and what happened. So on September 3rd, 2016, the Dakota Access Pipeline brought in this security company to protect the area where they were digging up part of the pipeline route. And this route contained burial sites and culturally significant areas. And so the Standing Rock Sioux tribe had filed legal action against them literally the day after that. Energy Transfer shows up with this security team and starts fucking bulldozing in this sacred area. And so when DAPL protesters entered the construction site, which had been fenced off as private property, which is real ironic in a gross way, they were met with pepper spray and attack dogs, who bit more than 6 protesters and 1 horse. These attacks were perpetuated by the guards of this so-called private property and not by police, who were actually busy standing up on a hill watching the scene and doing nothing.
So cool, dude. So cool how that happened. And it was, it was like this big deal, and like there was all this pushback against the protesters. And then, fucking the fascists can just take over the Capitol, and no one gives a fuck.
Yep.
It's so tight.
Yep.
I love our country.
Protecting like sacred sites, sacred burial grounds, and access to water. Water protectors is actually what a lot of people call themselves at these protests, because it is. You're protecting access to water and access to water that hasn't been fucking contaminated by oil.
Exactly.
Ugh. So when these police were asked about why they didn't fucking do shit, Kirchmeier, is this fucking guy's name? Who's like a spokesperson basically for the police. He said, quote, "It was more like a riot than a protest. And that then there was this investigation into, quote, the incident and individuals who organized and participated in this unlawful event.
Yeah, it's more like a riot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've said this a
Yeah.
gazillion times, but literally, like, you're gonna call them doing that violence while you're literally fucking over burial grounds, you're fucking over people's land, you're fucking over the water supply to an entire tribe. You're the one doing the fucking violence.
Exactly.
This is just retaliation.
Yes. That is, first of all, they weren't even being violent, and if they were, fine. That would be wholly justified.
It's justified. They're protecting their land. They're
Yes.
protecting their way of life.
That you're violating
their human
a treaty
rights.
that you fucking have in place. Oh my god, it's insane. And I thought this was like an interesting, sneaky, fucked up tidbit. So in December 2016, it was found that Dakota Access LLC had hired this firm called Tiger Swan that was providing security during the protest. And then in May 2017, these documents were leaked that there was this collaboration, which, I mean, of course, between the pipeline company, local, state, and federal law enforcement, and that allowed them to carry out this, quote, military-style counterterrorism measures.
Oh my god.
Yeah, which, again, they're calling it terrorism.
Yeah, protecting the water to your community is terrorism, yeah.
And so this company, Tiger Swan, they also collected this information that they used against protesters in the legal matters that they gave to prosecutors. And they also, the Tiger Swan was using social media to paint this picture of fucking these protesters. And so one of the documents that was leaked from Tiger Swan called the water protectors, quote, an ideologically driven insurgency with a strong religious component that operated along a jihadist insurgency model.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's such fucking propaganda. I can't even
insane.
get my mind around it.
It's insane. The use of the word jihad? You're joking.
Yeah, that's cartoonish.
No,
that's cartoon
it's insane.
evil,
It's
yeah.
so crazy. And so then even now, I believe even now, Energy Transfers is still using Tiger Swan. So.
And how long are we going to let literally the government, and I mean a lot of governments, but the U.S. government, again, just be a fucking cartoon villain?
Yes.
And just be like, it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm an American. I support it. Like, they are so fucking evil, dude. And this is just like a prime example of just how they don't give a fuck about anything except making money. Like, it's never been anything else.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that was the whole conversation I had with this guy at the vape shop today who's from Iraq, who was talking about just all of this, just how,
Exactly.
that's all. They come in, they don't give a fuck about the people and what happens to them. It's just, how can we get more money?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Doesn't matter how many people you murder in your fucking wake, or leave destitute. It's fucking evil. Okay, finishing up here. So, one of the, I think most well-known moments was on November 20th, protesters were trying to open up the Backwater Bridge, which the sheriff's department had said that they had closed the bridge because there was damage caused after protesters set numerous fires. However, protesters had reported that it was controlled bonfires used to keep them warm, because again, it was November. So they go to this Backwater Bridge. They're attempting to open it back up, and the police began shooting protesters with water cannons in 28-degree weather, along with tear gas, rubber bullets, concussion grenades. And there was also a woman who they had shot a flashbang grenade at her, and her arm, she was not sure whether or not she was going to lose her arm. And then another protester corroborated this, saying that they watched an officer throw it directly at her, which is, you should not be doing that.
Well, and I mean, same with rubber bullets, you're supposed to shoot at the ground,
Yes.
but I'm almost guaranteed they didn't shoot him at the ground.
There's many photos that you can
Yeah.
find. And so, when asked about the water cannon situation, first off, they denied, the officers denied that they had used it on any people. They said that the water is being used to put out fires. But then correction statement came later saying, quote, some of the water was used to repel some of the protest activities.
What a fucking bullshit,
Yeah.
pussyfoot answer.
Get ready for this, because then they said it was, quote, sprayed more as a mist, and we didn't want to get it directly on them, but we wanted to make sure to use it as a measure to keep everybody safe. No,
to keep everyone safe.
you were blasting freezing cold water on people in 28-degree weather. Like, there's no, you can't.
You were trying to hurt the protesters.
Yeah.
There's no keeping everyone safe. You're a fucking military.
Yeah.
The military. You're a fucking military unit, and you were violently attacking these protesters. And I know that they do it with everything. They fucking twist it all the time, but bullshit.
Yeah, no, it's absolute bullshit. So then by January 2017, the protest camp had dwindled down. Things had kind of not calmed down is the wrong word, but had sort of kind of started to break up. And then the Standing Rock chairman, Dave Archambault, called for the camp to be disbanded since the weather was getting worse and things were just getting more and more violent. And so then from there, that was kind of where things have started to sort of break apart and not be happening anymore. Although we are seeing, as of last year, a resurgence of it, and now things are kind of happening again. And now, actually, 5 years later, after all of this, the Dakota Access Pipeline, they're actually trying to expand it more.
Yeah.
Violating more treaties.
I don't remember what exactly the story or the exact details of it were, but I remember Joe Biden was going to try to expand some kind of pipeline. I don't know if it was. Yeah. And there was this thing where he was like, well, if we do this giant oil pipeline that obviously is bad for the environment, he's like, we'll use only green equipment to to construct it. And it's like, you're building an oil pipeline, Joe Biden. What the fuck do you mean?
It doesn't matter if the trucks run on fucking water power. You're digging up the ground and putting oil
in it
underneath rivers that are for sure gonna fucking leak, as we've seen over and over. And even with the oil spill episode you did, I mean, it's like this shit is basically inevitable.
Again, you can't with something that's as as volatile as oil. If a little bit of that shit gets in the water, it's donezo.
It's contaminated.
I don't know. It's just you can't trust even big industrial metal pipes. Eventually that shit's gonna rust. That shit's gonna decay, and it's gonna get in the water. And I can guarantee that the U.S. government doesn't give close to enough fucks to maintain it to where it doesn't.
Yeah, and there was all of this, I don't have this verbatim, but there was all of this scandal around the Dakota Access Pipeline and the safety structures of it being shitty. Yeah. Basically.
Absolutely.
Which of course.
Because again, they don't give a fuck.
No.
They're getting their oil through. That's all they fucking care about.
It doesn't matter. And of course they're probably trying to put this up as quickly as possible, and so things are put up in a way that's not up to code and all of that. Yeah, it's some shit.
I see. So yeah, I guess to address my prior statement, so I guess America does really be putting profit over people's lives. I guess I'm filled up to date now.
Now you know what America's all about.
Yeah.
Just profit over people.
Profit over people, baby.
Yeah. So this barely scratches the surface of the healthcare issues and other issues causing devastation on reservations, as well as, I barely covered not only the devastation of the protests, but the devastation of these pipelines in general. I didn't even cover the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on reservations and on Indigenous Americans in general. I didn't cover missing and murdered Indigenous women. This was an extremely brief look at life on reservations and how they're affected by the federal government purposefully neglecting and harming them. And now with all of this being said, there are, of course, many people that live happy lives on reservations, and I'm not discounting that at all. I just wanted to illustrate the American government's continued involvement in the suffering of Indigenous people.
Yeah, and it's I'm sure there's people who live happy lives, but we want to still provide
Yeah.
For, again, like you can live a happy life anywhere and under any conditions,
Sure.
know, but it's like, again, these people deserve basic human rights just
Yes.
like literally everybody else does.
Yes. And these are, these are the facts of how our government treats these people.
Yeah. It's rough.
Yeah. Real rough.
Well,
That is that.
it's a somber note, but
Yeah. Sorry.
what isn't in this show?
I mean, yeah, it's always a bummer-sode
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. I mean, it's, when you start looking at history, you're like, damn, human beings are a smudge on the earth, are a fucking plague.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the reality of things, and it's just the reality of, I mean, I was telling Taylor the other night, I was like, I don't really care about how many listeners we have or how the influence of this podcast. What I care about and why we're doing this is to spread the truth of America and what they do and what the American government does, because like obviously in school and our history and all of that is false information, and so the reason why we're fucking doing this is to say here's the true information.
Yeah.
That's all I fucking care about,
Speak truth to power, like they say.
Exactly.
And, and I think, like spreading the truth and just getting more people to like care about certain things,
Right.
like, I know there's more that needs to be done than just spreading awareness, obviously, like
For
people
sure.
need to take action, and I think that we as people take action.
Definitely.
But I think spreading information and awareness is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
If you don't know these things are happening, you're not going to know
How are
what
you
to
going
fight.
to-
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Well said.
Thank you. Moonshine, any thoughts?
Moonshine?
Any last thoughts?
She's usually kind of talkative. She's just sitting here looking cute. Oh,
Got a little meow.
yeah. I don't know if you could hear her little chirp, but it was very precious.
Yeah. Plugs, pluggabolskis,
Yeah.
pluggabolinators.
Plugginators. Well, if you want to check out our Instagram, it is at Remarks Podcast. Our TikTok is of the same, at Remarks Podcast.
You can hit me up on Twitter, because I run the Twitter account, at RemarksPod, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, please.
Please.
I mean, you can leave whatever review you want, but like 5 stars would be nice.
Would be cool.
Would be kind of tight.
Would be tight.
And if you like podcasts that you can watch, check out my YouTube channel. It's called The Lefty Agenda. I've been slacking on new videos, so I apologize, but been
You're
busy
a
with the
hardworking
podcast.
man. Yeah, you're a busy man. And for our shout out game this week, I have something that I know I would like to know from you people, and that is you people, our listeners, and that is what's a word you say in a goofy way?
True. No, I would also like to know that.
Mine is stupid.
Yeah, no, yeah. Phoebe, it's any like 2-syllable word that like
It's true.
it's so stupid.
Dorky.
Yeah, or like a word you can't say is
True.
nice. Like I cannot say I can't even it's hard to like form it in my mouth. The word peculiar.
Oh, that's a hard one.
I cannot.
Peculiar.
Yeah, I
Peculiar.
cannot say it. I
That's
always
hard.
add like a U in there, like a
And it's also
peculiar.
spelled stupid. So.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's just English is
Yeah.
dumb.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so like a word you say funny or that you can't say.
Marlboro.
Marlboro. Can anybody?
No.
I feel
And
like-
why? Why? Why would you name? That's so
True.
stupid. Give it something.
Everybody just says Marbs because
Marbs.
like why the fuck would you say the
Couple of
actual name?
marbles.
Because I'm gonna have to stumble over it 3 times
so
to actually
embarrassing.
get the word out. So it's like just Marbreds.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
that's
just
what you
gonna order a different kind of cigarette.
do. Exactly. I like the idea of like being so anxious about like loving Marlboro Reds so much, like you're like, oh, this is my favorite cigarette, but then
you
just being so anxious about saying it to the gas station clerk that you're like fuck, I'll just have a Winston. I'll just take a pack of Winstons.
That would be me if I smoked cigarettes, and if I smoked specifically
Marlboro.
Marlboros.
Yeah, or I don't whatever.
Anyway, what are we fucking talking about?
I don't know. But yeah, big shout out to Reality Records.
Reality Records. Definitely not a scam podcast promotion on Instagram at all.
That that comments on every one of our posts, every one of the
our
Instagram
supporters
posts.
from day one. Reality
True.
Records,
Reality
always out
Records.
there.
So give Reality Records some love, and we'll see you
but
next time.
don't give them your money.
Oh, yeah, definitely don't. No, they don't deserve that. Just your thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for listening.
Hey, love you. Bye.